what does it take to crack Northeastern University? Also, particularly in your case or your profile, what are the factors with which you think Northeastern liked you?
Um, I am not sure about the factors that they like me for. I'm assuming maybe the internships and the projects. Hopefully,
How do you reach out to your university? What is the process of reaching out to the university for any project that you might want to pick up? So particularly in your university, what are the steps you would have taken to reach out for one additional project?
the first thing is to find a guide who has some kind of knowledge in your area, and
Hmm.
then go to them, and they'd mostly be able to guide you once you have an idea of what you want to do.
Hmm.
After which, if your project has merit to it, it's either recommended for a patent or an exhibition, or somewhere. You have to do something, maybe publish a paper with that project. Like I said, I started most of my projects a little later. So there was only one that was recommended for a
Hmm.
patent, and right now we're working on getting that patented.
What do you think they liked potentially at Rhea's profile?
The sort of things that we can highlight. Absolutely, Rhea is holding a very good GPA that is like around 80%, more than 80%, we can say, right? That too, she was in her seventh semester that when we applied for the university. The first basis I would say is the interest, right? It's more about computer science being a very vast field. I would say there are multiple sort of blocks that comes together and make this a domain itself, right?
Hi everyone, welcome to another podcast from the series of Ace My Prep, where we talk about how students can make it to top universities. And today we're going to be talking about how Rhea Thomas could crack Northeastern University. So let's hear from Rhea what it takes to crack Northeastern University. Hi Rhea, how are you doing?
Hello, Pragya. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Great, thank you so much. So Rhea, first question is definitely to ask who Rhea Thomas is, talking about where you grew up and where you currently reside.
I'm from Bangalore. I've lived here all my life. I've been brought up here. And right now I'm in my fourth year of BTech in computer science and engineering. And I've studied at Rhea University. I've done I'm doing my graduation at Rhea University. And yeah,
So my first question is actually very basic. Why did you plan to go abroad? What is it that you want from your study abroad experience?
I think I kind of it. So it was already sketched out for me. So I knew as soon as I stepped into my bachelor's that I was going to, try for my master's abroad, and that was partly because I had a lot of relatives and family telling me that I should probably try and do that. Why I decided to the US? One is that I have, some kind of support there. My mom keeps traveling, so she's aware of the place. And second, obviously, they have a very flourishing IT landscape. So yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer about choosing the US for my masters.
As we stand here today with Northeastern University, a brilliant admit, and you're about to go. I believe you're in the visa process.
Yeah,
Yeah. So how does it feel today?
good. I feel very accomplished. I can say because I felt like I was maybe trying a bit too hard with Northeastern. I didn't know if I was going to get that admit, but yeah, getting that definitely made me feel very accomplished and happy.
Also introducing the other wonderful set of people that we have on this podcast. So I'd like to talk about the CSs who worked on Ria's case and made sure that this admit could be here with us today. So introducing Dhruv and Umair. So Dhruv, we would love to hear from you on what you do at Ace My Prep.
Okay, so here at Race My Prep, I'm basically a career strategist. So what we do here is Namir is also a career strategist. So a basic agenda or the work we do here is to evaluate the profiles, help the students out with their profiles, help them with the shortlisting, make sure that we are giving them the right set of schools according to their profile, enhancing that as well, the work on the current profile so that they can get into the dream universities. And that is the most motivating thing for all of us when our students gets into top universities and then they call us and say that I got through this university and this is a set of school that I really want to target from so long. So yeah, this is a source of like accomplishment for us. Yeah.
Hearing from Numair. Numair, can you please introduce yourself?
Okay, fair enough. As Dhruva said it earlier, I'm also a fellow CS over here. And being a CS basically means, I absolutely agree with what Dhruv just said. But apart from this, I would say, it is sort of like an annual where, we place ourselves and we make sure that the student, is completely onboarded to the, thought that we'll be there for them, yeah, be it the shortlisting, be it the university finalization, or for that visa as well. So we make sure that the choice that student is making is very appropriate in terms of the profile that they are carrying, and not just that in terms of the university that they are actually choosing. So that in the long run, it actually benefits them. Okay. Yes, that is it. That is what I want to actually add to what just Dev said. And apart from this, being a CS is indeed a very wonderful, I would say, a wonderful designation to be at, because when you get such wonderful responses, such prosperous responses from students, cracking good schools, it actually gives that inner zeal. It motivates you to drive more further and drive to get more better offers for students.
Definitely. All right. So today here we're going to try and convey Ria's entire journey to all of you watching this podcast to ensure that if any of you is looking forward to study at Northeastern University, particularly the data science, computer science course, I think you're going to know how a student moves through the journey. All right. So Ria, we are going to talk about you as not an aspirant just, right, but somebody who just thought of going abroad, right? So when is it that you actually started to research about, okay, there is something like studying abroad?
Like I said, I was pretty clear that I wanted to go, but when I started actually researching about all the consultants and all the
Mhm.
the entire process was when I was in my third year,
Okay.
and I think
Which is which month and year?
last year, so that's
Okay.
2023, around June was when I got in touch with Ace My Prep,
Okay.
and my research was about a month or two before that. It started before that.
Really?
Yeah, I was going through multiple consultants, speaking to them, and trying to
Okay.
figure out exactly what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw an Instagram advertisement for Ace My Prep, got in
Okay.
touch with someone named Arushi, and then I had my first demo session with Ashmita.
Mm-hmm.
And she was very convincing, and she just seemed to really know what she was doing. So we
Okay.
went ahead with her. There was a bit of a gap, but I think after a month, we contacted her and went ahead with Ace My Prep.
Okay. So while you were conducting this research, you mentioned you talked to a lot of people, right? So what is it that Ace My Prep could show, besides Ashmita being very convincing? But as a student, what did you want out of that session that Ashmita could fulfill?
There was a lot of clarity. It was very, you can say, systematic. She told me what I need, like from where I am right now, what I need to do, how it needs to be done. With, like, there were almost timestamps given that at this point you need to do this, you need to
Mm-hmm.
do this. She was very clear. There's generally a lot of anxiety around that whole
Mm-hmm.
process, but she simplified it. She made me understand it, and my mother was even more apprehensive than I was. She was worried about it, but she got through to my mom, explained things to my mom. So yeah, she instilled a lot of confidence, and that's
Okay.
why we went ahead with Ace My Prep. Yeah.
Okay. So in general, when you were just beginning to do your research, let's say, what is it exactly that a student is looking for in a consultant? I mean, reaching out to Ace My Prep, having an experience is a different thing. But what were your generic requirements that you wanted that, okay, these are the tick marks to my consultants and I might say yes?
Well, to start off, I needed clarity. We were a bit helter skelter at that point. Didn't know exactly how to proceed. The whole idea of sending out applications is very daunting when you don't know how to do it in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So, for somebody to clearly, concisely tell you what's going to happen, it helps a lot. And then, obviously, honesty, where they tell
Mm-hmm.
you clearly that this is doable and this might
Mm-hmm.
be a bit of a stretch, but we can still do it. That honesty is very important. So I would say clarity and honesty is very important when you're working with somebody, and then transparency, obviously.
Okay. So let's hear from a counselor out here. Dhruv, coming to you. So, what do you think as a consultant or as a counselor? What are your responsibilities to, get started with a student's case?
Okay. So, if we talk about the traits or like qualities that we need, and any CS or any consultant needs to have, is first thing, they should be very trustworthy, I would say, because
Mhm.
without the trust or without building that sort of rapport, no one can achieve the miles or heights that we talk about, right? Talking about that trust being there, that too having the sort of transparency as Ria just mentioned, right? Because if not transparent with the student, and if the student is not transparent, then there's no point of working on any profile in any case, right? So anyhow, if we know that we have to put 3 or 4 steps forward, and the student is also ready to go with the same mile with us, right? With the same
Mhm.
zeal, and that too with the same confidence as well. So that gives us a sort of a token of appreciation that yeah, we have to put the next step that we're going to put is going to be the best one for the student as well. So yeah, trust is the main factor. Apart from that, you have to be transparent with the student. You have to make sure that you are like being true to yourself as well, because it's not like that if you have to send Rhea to even any sort of university in USA, I would just simply tell her to go to this university as it is good in QS ranking. That too, you can get something out of it. That too, I'm not sure about it. It's just I'm pitching her something and she's agreeing to it, right? So that does not make any sense to me. If in case I know that Rhea, you cannot get through this university because this is way too much competitive according to your profile, I'll simply come up to her and tell her, and that too she will agree to it because that's the sort of rapport that we have built so far. So I guess these two things are the foremost things that we require. Yeah.
Okay, so Ria, was it easy to believe or put your trust into somebody who's sitting away from Bangalore, especially New Delhi?
So initially, I did not know that you guys were based out of New Delhi. And when I found out, I was a little apprehensive at first, but then I realized that majority of the process happens online anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dhruv just said, what matters most is trust. And I felt I could be very honest from the first session.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, after that, I had to convince my parents a bit again because they were apprehensive that, okay, you guys, I mean, it's based in another city and
Yeah.
Delhi's quite far from Bangalore. So but I guess once that's why there was a bit of a gap between my first session and actual onboarding. But after
Okay.
that, yeah, there wasn't. I mean, once the process was underway, there was complete honesty from both ends, and most of the process is online anyway. So I was not very worried about that after that.
Okay. So before you enrolled, what are the checks that you did? Maybe visiting our Google reviews, maybe checking the Instagram. This resorts to the question that any student who's looking forward to go with a counselor should do some basic ground checks, right?
Okay, so the first thing that I did was obviously a quick Google search. That's the first thing you can do. Maybe speak to some of the people around you about how you're supposed to go about the whole
Mm-hmm.
process,
Mm-hmm.
and then get on. Most of the consultancies offer you a demo session. You have to get onto that session. That is the best way to assess what they're offering.
Mm-hmm.
Optimism is very important. If you feel that they are really going to help you in that first demo session, I think you can be
Mm-hmm.
assured that they will. Before you even get to that point, have a little bit of idea of what course you want to do, how
Mm-hmm.
where you want to do it. If there's a particular area where you're specialized, where you want to specialize in, go ahead and
Mm-hmm.
get a clear idea about that. That will
Mm-hmm.
help you, that will help them. And yeah, just get onto these demo sessions, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with them, and then you'll get a pretty solid feel from that first session itself.
All right. So talking about the moment you enrolled, the first call that have here at least my prep is the onboarding call, right? So what was that judgment call in the onboarding session? What were you looking forward to having in that onboarding session, and how exactly do you think it was fulfilled?
In the first session, we already had a bit of an idea about how the process would be. Like I said, in the demo session, it was explained by Ashmita. After
Mm-hmm.
that, the moment we came onto the onboarding session, I was introduced to Dhruv.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, we had like a timeline. He said, Ria, by
Okay.
this day, we have to decide our universities, and then we have to send out our applications. And then we had
Mm-hmm.
a roadmap which we had to follow.
Mm-hmm.
So as I said initially, clarity is very important, and I got like a solid clarity in that onboarding call. And then I was introduced to Dhruv, who I could stay in touch with at all times. So that helped.
Okay. Your first review of Dhruv after the
Oh,
onboarding?
he was very confident, and I think I've given him a lot of grief throughout the entire process. He's been so patient, and yeah, really took some of anything that I had to tell him. He took it in stride, and so yeah, he was a very optimistic person. That's very reliable. He seemed very
Mm-hmm.
reliable, and yeah, I think that
Okay.
judgment was right.
Okay. Dhruv, your first review of Ria's profile, what is it that you set in your mind to target?
Okay. So, just to reiterate the first conversation that I had with Rhea, right? Rhea was very calm and she was very optimistic as well. But I like I was able to see that clear zeal in her eyes that she wants to like target the best schools, right? Talking about the first conversation, she was very clear that she needs to target Boston as a location. So that was the major filter that we carried out throughout the process.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being, her relatives are over there. That too, she will be able to get. A good job role once she graduates from Boston. That
Mm-hmm.
too, we all know the sort of prestige Northeastern holds and sort of location Boston is, right? So that was clear throughout the process. Now, I still remember having multiple conversations, multiple sessions with Rhea and her mother as well. And she was
Mm-hmm.
equally participating throughout the process. And she was equally giving her inputs that, Dhruv, please take care of this as well. Dhruv, we have to do this. Dhruv, we can do this as well. So that gave me a sense of, I guess, relief that it's not me and Rhea alone. We have a third person available, right? Like as a back, right? And she is also suggesting a few pointers. So it's not like that we both cracked it. It's more like the entire team along with the mother was there to help us out. And talking about the profile majorly now, Ria had like she still is holding a very good profile. The only thing is that when she enrolled, we were in the seventh semester, if I'm not wrong, right? So now she's in the final year, final sem of undergrad. And it was pretty clear that she is holding a good GPA, but we do need to have a lot of other factors to highlight, right? Because cracking Northeastern, that too for a tech-heavy program, is not a cakewalk, to be very honest. So then once we started having multiple conversations, I started asking, drilling down on a few pointers. I started asking the sort of projects that she had worked on, right? What sort of extracurriculars do she hold? What is the depth of those project work? Because we had a major constraint that we're not in a position or state to give a GRE examination. So we had to focus on multiple other factors, and that's how we boosted our profile, and that's how we started the conversation of having at least Northeastern in the list. That too for both the courses, not majorly for computer science, but we decided to have data science in the second run as well. So that even if we could not get into computer science domain, we were pretty sure that we can get through data science. So yeah, that's how the entire journey started.
So we are talking about your profile back then when you were just getting started. So you had an undergrad degree. What
I'm,
else?
I'm still doing my
You
undergrad.
were
I haven't
still
got
pursuing
any.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were still pursuing an undergrad degree, but typically that is the one thing that we had, right? So could you
Hmm.
share more details about your undergrad firstly?
You mean in terms of my GPA?
Yes. So where did you pursue your undergrad from? What was the exact degree and your CGPA?
Okay, so I'm pursuing my undergrad from Rhea University, and I'm doing a Bachelor of Technology in Computer Science and Engineering. At the time I got in touch with you guys, I think my GPA was around 8.2, if I'm correct, 8.2, 8.1, somewhere there,
Okay.
and now it's at around 8.3, 8.4, in that
Okay.
range.
Okay.
So yeah, and like Dhruv said, it was just my GPA that we had at that time. To be very honest, my
Hmm.
projects were we weren't in a place where we were thinking about a final sem project yet.
Okay.
So the projects that I'd done were mostly just for fun, and they were I didn't think that it was worth being on a resume because I was just doing it for fun.
Hmm.
So he made me dig out all of those projects, and he said we everything matters, and
Hmm.
we put all of that in front. Also, after that, I got two internships, one after the other. So
Hmm.
those two added a little bit of depth to my resume. But when I started off,
Okay.
yeah, it was just my GPA that we had.
Okay. But you're not preparing for the GRE GMAT. You always decided not to taking this examination, or you did want to take GRE.
I did take the GRE, but my
Mm-hmm.
scores weren't too good. And I'm not very surprised about that because I wasn't able to give the kind of time the preparation requires. I was in the middle of my studies and I just didn't do justice for, to the
Hmm.
preparation that I should have. And it reflected on my scores. But I also knew that I was not going to be able to give any more time. And I wanted to go by September of 2024. I couldn't
Hmm.
afford to waste any more time with the GRE. So I sort of told him that let's see what we can do without the GRE.
Okay. So you came to Ace My Prep after you had already taken your GRE, or you took your GRE once you were here?
I took my GRE once I was here. I
All
think a
right.
month after I signed on.
All right. So, Dhruv, when we got back with our GRE scores, and as Rhea mentioned, they were not as great as we might have imagined. So the student generally is anxious because there's a lot of anticipation for this course, right? But what was your next step? What was your next go-to thing?
Okay. So, right before Rhea came to Isna I guess she already gave like one GRE mock, and on our onboarding session, we discussed that as well. She was not doing pretty well because she was not able to give that sort of time for the preparations. Now, once we had the onboarding session, we decided that we have to at least try taking a GRE mock against that. At least we can check where we stand at the moment, what is the base or the ground that we have set, and accordingly we have to build the pillars over there, right? So, talking about that sort of push that I gave her, just to check, so where do we stand at the moment, and what sort of other things we should be adding to the profile. Now that buffer was there, so that in the backend, I was also like preparing for the same because I was not hoping that Rhea would like give a GRE mock, she will be scoring 310, 315, and then we're gonna give the final examination. It was more like we were there with the second plan as well. I was very ready to, pitch for the universities that do not majorly require GRE, but that do hold the same prestige and same sort of, ROI that we were looking forward to have, right? So when the scores came up, Freya said that now what is going to be the next step? And the main thing that I've like majorly tell all the students, the same thing I told Rhea as well, that you don't need to worry about anything, right? Because it's not like GR is the only thing that we hold, right? There are multiple factors that we have to showcase. It's not like if you're not going to get GR, you cannot sit into Boston, you cannot go to Northeastern, you cannot even pursue any other university or course out there in the States. So the major thing that we focused on the multiple factors that we do hold in the profile, as Ria just mentioned, there are multiple sort of projects that she did. That too, I mean, if you simply go for a CV, you will figure out the sort of in-depth or sort of technicalities those projects hold because it is majorly related to NLP. It is related to she had this NFT projects capsule, wala, right? There's multiple other projects, but that too she holds two internships. So I guess we majorly focused on the multiple other factors, and apart from that, we highlighted the sort of programming skills because talking about computer science, it's more about your quantitativeness, I would say. But that at the same time, you need to hold a sort of prerequisite. That is one thing that major students does not even put emphasis on. So we kind of aligned the course with her undergraduate degree. We figure out the sort of credit hours that the course requires, and that too we do hold in our undergraduate degree. The sort of subjects that we've studied that do hold a good sort of advantageous, will give us an advantageous edge over other students. So these were the multiple other steps that we took, and eventually we cracked Northeastern with the same set of mind. Yeah.
Okay. So, Ria, I understand that you were doing these projects. So, I believe you were very sure that you're going to use these projects in your study abroad applications, right? So, did your perception for these projects or the hard work you were doing for these projects change the moment you knew, okay, this is going to be used in my applications? Or is it that was just put on the resume later? This I generally want to understand.
No. So actually, by the time we started
Hmm.
working on it, I'd already started my 7 sem mini project. Now,
Okay.
this held a lot of
Hmm.
importance even at university
Even in
because
the
we were
academic,
graded on it.
yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so there was a lot of effort that was put in there.
Right.
Apart from that, the smaller projects were also through university because
Okay.
either it was for some kind of exhibition or we were graded for it.
Hmm.
But I just felt, as I said before, it didn't merit. It wasn't that great. It wasn't something groundbreaking that should have been on a CV. So I was not very aware of what should have been there. Once I started with Ace My Prep, another suggestion that was given to me was maybe you to enhance your CV a bit. You could take up some more projects, which is when I started looking at something that could align with my interests and also make my CV a bit more exciting. And I started working on that. And then we added them. So we added them only after sufficient work was done on it, and some of them are still ongoing. I intend to finish it by the time I finish my semester.
Okay. So a lot of students, besides the mini and the major project that is done during engineering, I'm also an engineer. I've dealt with it. So besides that, how do you reach out to your university? What is the process of reaching out to the university for any project that you might want to pick up? So particularly in your university, what are the steps you would have taken to reach out for one additional project?
The first thing is to find a guide who has some kind of knowledge in your area, and then go to them, and they mostly be able to guide you once you have an idea of what you want to do. After which, if your project has merit to it, it's either recommended for a patent or an exhibition, or somewhere, you have to do something, maybe publish a paper with that project. Like I said, I started most of my projects a little later. So there was only one that was recommended for a patent, and right now we're working on getting that patented.
Great.
So that's mostly the process. You find a guide, and then they'll be able to help you out after that.
So, Namer, this question is for you particularly. So, we mentioned about two internships that were being pursued, and I believe these were during the time that you were pursuing your undergraduate. Uh, so, one, are internships that are pursued during the course of your program counted or accredited when you put them in your resume as work, or they do not matter?
I'm sorry, are you addressing me?
Yes, I did.
All right, I thought Rhea was supposed to answer that. Fair enough. If I have to trace back to the question that you just mentioned, then definitely the internship that you're pursuing, like while you're pursuing the internship that you do while you're pursuing the undergraduates, they do matter a lot. But when it comes to full-time work experience, that has separate. I would say that has that separate fan base over there. But yes, if I have to specifically state the fact regarding internships, then yes, they carry a lot of weightage, and it adds a lot of value as well. It imbibes a lot of value in your profile and makes it more wholesome and more appeal to the universities when it comes to particularly SNCS.
What I'm understanding is कि it will not be counted as experience क्योंकि वो same duration में है, but वो value add कर देगा because that shows your interest. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. So Dhruv, the way out of researching about the projects that a student should take in area of whatever interest they have, what is the ideal methodology you would suggest, recommend a student to go about these projects?
Okay. The first basis I would say is the interest, right? It's more about computer science being a very vast field. I would say there are multiple sort of, blocks that comes together and make this a domain itself, right? So computer science consists of a lot of multiple things. It consists of multiple programming languages. You do have your subjects which are very focused into linear algebra, calculus, multivariables. That too, you have different sort of niches joining these this particular name, which is now machine learning, AI, data science. Now the students are very like kind of crazy about all these names, and they do need to get into the habit of learning about these things. They need to dig into the very deep and find out what is ML really and how they're helping people to change the world and what sort of job opportunities are there once they get graduated from one of these fields itself. So I would say interest is the first thing. Now, apart from that, taking up the project is basically something which is like a two-way thing, I would say, because in few universities you would feel that there's a mandate thing that you have to take up the sort of project, which university will provide you a list of 4 or 5 names, and you have to pick one or two projects from there. Then in there, and you'll be like getting the merits out of it, right? So that is for the sake of doing it. But apart from that, talking about if you have interest into a sort of programming languages, I would say if you're good into programming, if you have a good interest in C Sharp, Java, C++, right? And you know how the DevOps part works, you know how the developing part works, you can take up projects into web developing as well. So that web developing is also a part of computer science, right? That's how you select your interests, you select your niches, and accordingly you put it into the right place, and then you figure out what sort of project will add value into your profile.
Okay. So, hearing from a student side, what does it take to crack Northeastern University? Also, particularly in your case or your profile, what are the factors with which you think Northeastern liked you?
I am not sure about the factors that they like me for. I'm assuming maybe the internships and the projects. Hopefully, I was elated when I found out. Obviously, this was in our dream category, so I was a little confused and not very sure whether this was going to happen or not. If this, we'd crack this or not. So obviously, when I got that admit, I was ecstatic, and yeah, I still I'm still very happy about that. So I don't have the right words to describe what it felt
Right.
like at that moment. Um, having said that, yeah, I think that my internships did play some kind of a role in getting that admit. And I also had recommendations from those my employers. So I think that sort of added a little more
Okay.
credit to those
Okay.
internships.
Okay. So let's hear from the career strategist end now. So, Dhruv, coming to you, what do you think they liked potentially at Rhea's profile?
Okay, so I would like to address this question like a very simple manner. I will not move ahead answering the question according to Ria's profile. I would say I'll just give you the answer according to what is like what does it take to crack Northeastern, what the university usually likes in a profile, right? Right. So talking about like the sort of things that we can highlight, absolutely, Ria is holding a very good GPA that is like around 80%, more than 80% we can say, right? That too, she was in her seventh semester that when we applied for the university. Other things, as I just mentioned, that we focused on the projects work. We tried to mention that very depth of project work, the sort of result that she derived from her part in that project. Apart from that, talking about the internships, yes, they do. The internships really do justice to your profile, I would say, because even though if you're pursuing your undergraduation, it is still important to showcase that you have done something, right? You have implemented those sort of learnings. Now, those implementations are a sort of internships are a sort of things that showcases that implementations. It's not mandatory to have a full-time work experience if you're from the tech domain. I would say, particularly if you are intrigued towards the computer science domain, because as we all know that the sort of average work experience for each goes like up to 3-4 years and starts from zero, right? So it's better, I would say, if you do not hold a work experience, because you do have multiple things and the sort of you can do that in-depth analysis of your own profile, and then you can figure out what sort of things you have to showcase. So internships were there. Apart from that, I would say sort of skill set that we showed in her CV, right? The sort of programming languages she knows, understands, right? The sort of models or tools she has used, right, during her projects as well, that too during her internships, really did justice, and that's how we were able to get into Northeastern, I would say.
Okay. So, Namay, you handled the later part of the process, specifically the applications and the SOPs, primarily all the editing. So, how important do you think it is to make a perfect application? On what role here a perfect application plays? And besides that, what is the importance of all the editing documents in this process?
All right. All right. So Ria was handed over to me when Dhruv was on a sabbatical because of some health issues. And when I came, when I actually came across Ria's profile, I was really amazed because she was carrying exceptional CGPA. That too for sure. Because maintaining that particular CGPA, the entire SGPA, collaborating it, and then having that CGPA around is indeed very impressive. And that will be taking CS. So when I still remember in my first call, when we were actually, when I was actually introduced to Ria, my first question was like, is Northeastern, your dream university or average university? And it was like, it is my actually, it is a dream university of mine. And I was actually very confident that, we would be cracking Northeastern big time. And in fact, there was some other university as well where, we were having a talk that, we might be able to crack it. But, since, the application shortlisting part was done by Dhruv, and it kudos to you, you made that happen. You made it sure that, it is happening actually, that we were having Northeastern on the list. And not just that, as Dhruv has mentioned before itself, that having work experience, it is indeed beneficial in some way or another. But if you're not if you're not having it, then also it is it is good in that manner as well. So when it came to Ria specifically, based on her internship that she has done, and based on the lucrative profile that she was carrying, Northeastern was very accessible. But still, there was something which is which we basically as SOP, statement of purpose. And I was over there to help her out with, because when it comes to SOP, it indeed is a major chunk of the deal. I would say 80% of your entire application depends upon how good and how approachable and how representable the SOP is to the universities. And over there, we were very peculiar with each and every little detail, and we were being as meticulous as possible as well for that matter. I was constantly, reaching out to Ria regarding SOPs and making sure that, each and every, every little detail is perfect over there. And, in case if she needs to add anything regarding her projects or any internship that she was actually pursuing at that time, it is being mentioned over there. So based on that, we did work our way up with the SOPs, and we finalize them as well for Northeastern particularly and some other universities too. And not just that, we made sure that the LOR drafts are as appropriate as possible, be it the academic or the professional ones. And apart from this, yes, exactly, CEGO is something which Dhruv made sure that we are not absolutely lacking at. And based on that, I would say the documentations, they are very necessary when it comes to cracking good schools big time, because good schools above, I would say top universities in foreign nation, for instance in USA particularly, Northeastern being one of them, they solely do not assess a candidate based on how good their CGPA is. Rather, it's about how wholesome and how diverse the profile is at that point of time. And that is what Dhruv and at Ace My Prep, we actually make sure that the profile the candidate is actually carrying is very representable and very approachable to the universities, and not just that, is actually very holistic in the entire approach and in the entire appeal to the university. And that is how Rhea cracked it. Plus, kudos to Rhea as well for trusting me for that by matter, because I was very new with Rhea's process, and she was still in her undergraduate. But yes, definitely, kudos to you guys.
So, Rhea, what was your, comprehension of an SOP back then as a new study abroad aspirant? What did you understand from an SOP?
My understanding was that it's basically a document where you just write all of your achievements, what all you've done so far, and kind of becomes like information overload because there's so much that gets into the SOP. So when I got the draft, it was very cohesive and very clearly put across, very nicely put across actually.
Okay.
I don't think I'd have been able to do that by myself. So I think I'm very grateful for those drafts that I got, where I could just put my inputs in and it was compiled in a very informative way. But to come back to your question, my basic understanding was that it's just a document where you document all of your everything that you've done so far.
Okay. So, as a student who went through the entire SOP, drafting process, along with, of course, your career strategist, it starts with you writing down some answers to a few questions that we call SOP guidelines like that. So, any future aspirant who's looking forward to begin their SOP writing, what are the tips that you would give them?
I'd say so there is nothing that is a small accomplishment. Everything that you've done, from a small project to a big project, to something that you've just did one day, even something very small, you might think it's irrelevant, but it's actually, you can still play it up in your SOP. So document all of those things right from the beginning. And don't be shy. Don't be too humble when you're writing your SOP. The sole purpose of that document is to bring yourself up. So do that. Bada chada ke likho usme. That's what I'm trying to say. And document everything. Write as much as you can. And just do as many projects as you can so you can write more in that SOP if you don't have any work experience, which I didn't have.
So this question is for you, Dhruv. How exactly, for a student who has a lot of projects, a lot of internships, a lot of things on the plate, right? So how to filter out what things deserve a place on your SOP and the things that don't?
Okay. So, first thing, absolutely, we have to go with. It's not like we have to go with the flow. We just need to sit and have that discussion, have that in-depth analysis of what sort of project work you hold and what sort of expertise you hold in the same domain itself. It's more like if you've done a project work and you've not done something tangible, I would say you just did it for the sake of doing it. You're just mentioning 4 or 5 pointers in your CV. That too, we're not able to make it something out of it, right? So it's more like putting the name in the SOP or putting like a 1 or 2 liner. That won't make any such big difference, I would say, because it's like we're doing it for the sake of doing it, I would say. But more or less, if you have done a project, which is suppose in Ria's case, she did this medicine like blockchain project, right? Wherein she has derived tangible results as well. She has used multiple tools and that too programming languages. So more or less, if you'll go and figure out what we have written in the SOP, I would say it was there about the project work, the sort of expertise she holds, the sort of work she has done, and that too, that is directly aligning with the course she is targeting. So if you have multiple things in a plate, then you have to figure out what sort of things you have to showcase in the SOP. That too, what is there that can go in the CV as well. Because it's not like that you've written down or jotted down a lot of pointers in the CV and you're simply copy pasting the same in your SOP. SOP serves like a different purpose totally, right? SOP is about your personal motivation, why you want to apply for this course, and how the sort of things that you hold in a profile is aligning to that course. That to CV will give the overall holistic, holistic sort of picture to the university about your profile, so that they can evaluate or assess your profile better, I would say. So SOP holds a pretty different purpose, and that too, if you have multiple things, you need to make sure that you are highlighting the ones that are at peak, I would say, that to align with the sort of future goal that you see, and that too, that something which is tangible. So that will eventually going to make up a difference.
Okay. So, Rhea, this question is for you, particularly anybody looking forward to grow their expertise in the technical domain, particularly, let's say, computer science. What are the skills that they can pick up? What is the language that they can learn, which later can be put over the resume and they can be talked about?
I feel there are at least 3 programming languages which you'll have to have. You'd have to be basically fluent at. You should be able to write basic programs. That would be Java, Python, and either C or C++, one of them.
Okay.
And after that, you will have something that you're interested in. It could be data science, it could be blockchain. Pick that up and then work towards building projects, gaining certifications, studying, reading about it, doing any courses. That is something that you can play up on your SOP later. So those are important things. But yeah, the primary focus should always be on 3 programming languages that you can build on.
Okay. So could you share any resources where the students can potentially go and learn these languages?
I think Udemy is a very good source. Beyond that, if you're doing your bachelor's, then I'm sure you'd be learning it in university too. Otherwise, there's Java, T-Point. There's so many resources on the internet. ChatGPT is very helpful. It gets a bad rep, but when it comes to teaching you something, or when it comes to getting a finer understanding, that will help you out a lot, as long as you're using it in the right way.
Right way. Yes, that's true. Okay. So talking about the process in between, so while we were shortlisting, Northeastern, I understand, was the dream school. So what are the other schools that you look forward to apply to?
Purdue was another dream school. We haven't got a response from there yet. But Purdue was the other dream school, and then we had UC Davis and UC Irvine. So UC Irvine was for data science, and UC Davis was for computer science. Everything else was for computer science. So those were our 4 universities. Actually, Texas A&M too.
Okay, all right. So Dhruv, particularly, what was your strategy to shortlist universities for MS Computer Science, Data Science program for you?
The objectives that we had, right? We wanted to have a good ROI. We need to have good exposure. We need to learn sort of very good curriculum that can eventually help us get into a better job role. So talking about all these factors, we figured out that somehow we can have a good combination of computer science and data science. That too, my main focus was to give more weightage to data science instead of computer science. Reason being that again, because we had multiple sessions, I can recall that me, Rhea, and another was sitting over a session. We were discussing over what course we should be targeting ideally, and I mentioned that, ma'am, data science is going to be the best one for Rhea. Reason being that if you want to target a good university, data science is sort of a course which is less competitive if you feel, right, because computer science, the sort of prerequisites that the program holds are very rigorous, that you cannot play around all those factors, because if you're going towards data science, you still have a scope of improving and sort of I would say a trade which you're lacking in eventually. So that's how I majorly played around the workstation. I made sure that we're keeping data science and computer science both. Now talking about Northeastern majorly, because Rhea mentioned that Northeastern is the priority. And I made sure that we are putting Northeastern in the list. That too, I wanted to make sure that we're sitting in Northeastern. We want to get through Northeastern anyhow. So I made sure that we're targeting computer science as well as data science. So I told Rhea, well, let's do one thing. Let's just
That
put
was
the
my next
application for
question,
computer science.
actually.
Yeah, so I simply asked Rhea that you want to sit in Northeastern. She said yes. I okay, what we'll do is we'll simply put an application for computer science. We'll add for another course. We'll go with the second application. If in case university rejects our application for computer science, I'm pretty much sorted. I'm very confident that they're going to give us an acceptance on data science eventually, because Northeastern sitting in Boston are the primary things that we focused on. So that's how this journey started. That's how we wanted to keep a good mixture of computer science and data science, that too the courses that are directly aligning with her profile. Yeah.
Okay. So we've been talking about ROI. So Rhea, as a student, what is still your expectation of ROI?
Return of investment. So obviously what I learn in these 2 years, there should be some weightage to it. I should learn something that is later industry relevant. That's important to me because I don't have any work experience. So this is something that I should be able to play up. And yeah, if the university, so there is a reason why I was so insistent on Northeastern, and that was because of the co-ops there. And I believe that for me was that was the ROI I was looking for, because if I'm able to get some kind of industry exposure through my university itself, then that's great.
Okay.
And yeah.
So Northeastern, this would be a STEM program. So how important was it to, of course, your domain particularly is always going to be STEM, but how important do you think STEM, non-STEM would be for a student?
I think STEM would be pretty important, just because of the kind of benefits that you get when you're pursuing a STEM course. I think even your OPT is longer when you're pursuing a STEM course, and your chances of getting a job are also higher. We don't know if you will get a job in the US, if you'll have to come back to India, what happens. But regardless, if it's STEM, you know that you will get a job anywhere. So I
Right.
think, yeah, I think STEM, it has its benefits
Okay.
that sort of outweigh non-STEM.
Right. So, Nomad, this question would be for you. So, as a counselor, what is your understanding of ROI, and how would you ensure that we are bringing ROI to the conversation and giving the right advice?
All right. When it comes to return on investment, I, as a counselor, make sure this particular thing that be it any student, be with it any profile that the investment that the student is particularly making in the course that they're applying for, the ROI should be close to at least 2x magnitude. That is for a reason, because when you are actually going abroad to pursue further with your studies, you are having all of these luscious dreams regarding needing a good job, regarding acing a good university, and be it co-ops, internships for that matter. And that is where actually the ROI comes in, right? And indeed, ROI for some students, it does not matter a lot, because they expect that they want to travel the world. But at the long run, ROI is what it actually revolves around. The entire scenario revolves around. And if I have to actually guide you with how we make sure that we are actually we are going forward with a university where ROI is very prominent, is by making sure that that particular university is good in the ranking. And not just that, we make sure that the course and the curriculum that that particular and respective student is targeting is very promising in the coming future. And down the line, if we have to project that student and the career that they're opting for, it is indeed very prominent at that point of place as well. And apart from this, yes, do you want me to address anything else?
I think talking about the ROI, what is the exact process that you would follow to make sure, or what websites do you refer to get this information? So, as a student, if I have to sit here today and research about the ROI of Northeastern, what do I need to look at?
You can definitely do, if that is a point discussion, then definitely the QS ranking or US News and Reports ranking could be a vital source where you can gather the information about universities ranking. Not just that, we can revolve around Northeastern's class profile as well. And the average class profile, it definitely resonates over there. The average placement that is happening. Not just that, we can search for Northeastern's, the kind of companies that hire at Northeastern, and we can relocate and reiterate our process, and we can reach out to those companies as well for that matter. Indeed is one of the job portals available. There is indeed that is indeed a very wholesome project, and a wholesome process as well. But it is not limited to it. But if I have to concise it, and if I have to put it in a nutshell, then US News and Reports, US ranking, all of those good ranking websites could be considered for that matter.
So 20% is the acceptance rate for Northeastern's data science program. So particularly, Dhruv, why do you think that Northeastern ranks so high and is so extremely competitive for the data science and computer science program?
Okay, so I would say the major thing that we focused on was the research work, right? Talking about Northeastern, that too for such a good program, which is data science, that too with 20% acceptance rate. Uh, I mean, wise, if I have to tell you something, it's basically you have to make sure that you're going to the like the overall overview page of that university, because that will give you the overall evaluation of what the course has to offer, what the university would want from the applicants. It's more like if you go through the entire website, you'll figure out that it is for the people who want to like build their career in the same domain. That too, if they hold a simple expertise, that too, they understand the programming languages, they do hold some sort of subjects in their undergraduate degree, they can apply for the same domain. That too, we are holding all the sort of things, we were fulfilling the prerequisites. That too, we were able to highlight more other things than that. So I think that was one thing that built that confidence in me, and still the confidence to mention Northeastern data science to Rhea in the shortlist. And that's how I figured out that yeah, we can still make it up to data science if not computer science, because computer science may, if you have to apply, you need to have very good GPA. That too, program is very competitive.
So Rhea, what did you particularly like about the Northeastern program or Northeastern overall?
One was proximity. So it was in Boston, which, like I said, I have a bit of a support system in Boston. And so it was important for me to at least try to be close to Boston. Second was the co-ops. So Northeastern is one of the few schools that offers co-ops. It's kind of mandatory, or they really encourage students into taking co-ops. They have a bunch of companies that are in ties with them. To be very honest, that was a key factor when I considered Northeastern, the fact that those co-ops were there. Up and yeah, and I had a couple of seniors from my university who studied there, and they had only good things to say about Northeastern. So a known devil is better than an unknown angel, and everything that I heard about it was good. So I said, yeah, like this is something that I really want to target, and let's see if it works.
No, definitely. It's actually very, very good for the program that we're talking about. It's brilliant because you get everything in one place, not just a good faculty or research opportunities. What you have is industry access and definitely being in the hub, not just because of the reason, yet that you have a support system, but otherwise as well. You're going to be in the hub, you can just, step down and hand over your resume. You'll have easy access more than all. Besides that, Northeastern is definitely expensive, is what I believe for an ideal student, right? So, talking about the particular tuition fee at Northeastern, so do you think for an Indian student, is it doable? Is it quite high? What was your view of this amount that you're going to be spending on your future?
When we take it into consideration with other universities, I think it's doable. It is on the higher side, but given, like Dhruv said, all the like Numair said, all the QS ranking and everything, it is I think it's doable. And yeah, so we had so many other universities on our list whose where the tuition fee was higher than what we anticipated. So I think this is doable. Also, we can try for scholarships, and you can when you take up a co-op, you get paid for that. So or any assistantship. So there are a lot of ways you can support yourself there while studying. In a nutshell, if it's a yes and no question, I'd say yes, it's doable.
Okay. So as you move for your visa right now, so are you somebody who's looking for a student loan or you're going to be sponsoring yourself? How easy was sorting that out firstly?
We were pretty sorted on a student loan.
Okay,
So we already went to the bank and got that sanctioned and
great.
all of that. We found out that I was eligible for a scholarship after the student loan process. It was a pretty substantial scholarship. So yeah, but to answer your question, it was a student loan. That's what we're going to take. That's what we took. And it was pretty linear in figuring that out. We knew that we had to do this from the beginning.
Great. I think your, mother, especially being involved, has definitely been a blessing because most of the students they never discuss this side of the story with the parents, and then later on it comes as a surprise. Especially in the finances, I think your mother, being looped in, she would have sorted this part out for you since day one. That's actually very, very, very good, and I would recommend each and every parent to be involved in this process. It's not easy for a kid to do it alone. All right. So talking about how your process was at Ace My Prep. So firstly, you can share your review of through or the entire service, whatever parts you want to talk about, good or bad. We would love to hear.
It was a very what's the right word? I think it was a very fulfilling journey that I've had with Ace My Prep so far. Everybody that I've been in touch with, very professional, very helpful, and I tend to go a little overboard, ask a lot of questions, trouble them a lot, and they've been very receptive, very patient with me. having said that, they've also solved all of my problems, giving me a lot of peace of mind when it comes not just for the process, but even the future, how I'm going to handle things out there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would, if you ask me, would I recommend Ace My Prep to other people? Yeah, for sure. I think anybody from my family who wants to go, I tell them you can blindly go ahead with Ace My Prep, because at least they will tell you how it is and they'll help you through it. If you're completely honest with them, they're going to be completely honest with you.
Really glad to hear that. Besides, what is that X factor that you felt at Ace My Prep? Maybe a moment wherein you felt, okay, this was not expected out of a counselor or the company.
You mean in a good way, right?
Anyway.
uh it was, so I don't have any moment like that that stands out. Like I said, it was a pretty linear experience, but the one point where I felt like this, this is going to work, like I said, was way back in my demo session. uh was when Ashmita spoke to me, and she was very convincing, and she was very clear.
Hmm.
And I think that is something people are taking for granted everywhere. When I spoke to a lot of other people, they did not have that kind of clarity. The fact that she had that clarity and she walked us through very confidently throughout everything, that was the moment where I felt like, yeah, it's going to work through this. The next was obviously when I spoke to Dhruv, and he was very confident in my ability. He said, yeah, Ria, you might not feel like you're going to do it, but I know you're going to do it. So he instilled a lot of confidence and optimism in everything that he said. So yeah, I think if you want me to narrow it down to one moment, I would say two, and it would be those two moments.
Great. All right. So as you get ready, what are your expectations out of this degree? What do you plan to achieve once you are there?
Like I said, it should, I want to learn more about my field, and I want to learn with faculty that are experienced in this, that know what they're talking about. I hope I have more opportunities to do projects that really make a difference, make an impact, and better research opportunities. Yeah, and also I would love to get a couple of co-ops, get some industry knowledge under my belt before I graduate.
Anything you're worrying about before you have to leave the country?
Right now, just the visa interview. I think once I clear that, I'm okay. Everything else is
You'll be
sorted.
good. You'll be good. You'll
Okay,
be
thank
good. Don't
you.
worry. All right. Besides, how's your family responding to you leaving the country and going away?
I mean, they're obviously, it's bittersweet. They're very proud of me, but my mom especially, how am I going to stay so far away all alone? But we have to, like, the bird has to fly the nest. So like, it's just something that everyone is kind of wrapping their heads around. I think it's all going to be even more final once I get my visa interview done with. So right now, a lot of the focus is on that.
I think you're going to do good. Besides everything apart, I'll connect with you later, and I'll be, sitting with you for the. Besides,
Definitely.
I think talking about how the journey has been, I think definitely it was wonderful uh, to have you on board from the starting and then be such a sweet student. And besides just being a sweet student, I think being a passionate student. Dhruv wonderfully described, how the eyes express and we can see that gleam in the student's eyes, right? Okay, I think that's what we have all learned. When you see that passion, you identify it and you kind of would go overboard to make sure, okay, now you're getting this to a student. Right? So I think that's how Dhruv connected with you, Numair connected with you. So you've done your part being a brilliant student at Ace My Prep. Dhruv के phone तो अभी नहीं चल रहे हैं, so I'll have to move away and end this directly. But yes, on another note, I think definitely, Rhea, we wish you all the best as you move forward. There's a lot of learnings that you would have picked up, and we'd be really glad if you share more of these snippets with anybody who's looking forward to studying at Northeastern. So, on that note, we're going to end this podcast. And it was wonderful talking to Rhea. It was wonderful knowing her story, and definitely a lot of wonderful insights on how you can crack Northeastern University for the most competitive program of computer science and data. If you're looking to know more, you can connect with us anytime, anywhere.